Shut up and sit down.
What's happening, guys? This is the Takeover Tuesday show. My name's Carlos Redlick, and I got David Allen on the other side. What's happening, David?
Hey, Carlos. Good to be here for another edition of the Takeover Tuesday podcast. And our special guest this week is Luke Corden, copywriter extraordinaire, marketer extraordinaire, all the way from the UK. What's up, Luke?
G'day, guys. How you going? David,
Awesome.
Carlos, it's lovely to speak with you.
Yeah, this is going to be awesome, man. I don't even remember how I really came across you. It's usually as a copywriter, I do a lot of reading. So usually I'm reading other people's articles and their tips and tricks and stuff, and sort of trying to improve my marketing as well, of course. And I think that's how I stumbled across you, Luke. You had some really good articles on your blog, I believe, and wherever I first read them, maybe some of the things you'd said in Facebook groups. You seem to really simplify what you do, and that really resonates with me because that's sort of some of the people I've followed in my career have that same approach.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've always been very interested in productivity and basically just making things as simple as I can. I mean, I think like probably a lot of, I don't know, it's hard to say, like a lot of entrepreneurs, I'm very, very lazy. I don't want to work too hard. And yet you come to this contradiction where you spend all your life busting your balls trying to create a space where you don't have to work too hard. So, simplification is definitely key.
That's awesome. Why don't you, for people who've never heard of you before, why don't you sort of give the backstory of how you got into this whole marketing mess right from the get-go?
Okay. Righto. Where to start? Well, I've always had a bit of a problem with authority. I think that's probably the best place to start. I spent much of my
entrepreneur.
Yeah.
It's critical. But I spent much of my young life like embracing that, and also just, I don't know, I tried to find as many elaborate ways as I possibly could to be able to spend as much time doing nothing, and pretty much as a young guy, drinking in different elaborate ways. And that took me on quite a few wild adventures, but it also took me to being an unemployable bum for a while. It took me to busking my way around Australia for a while, spinning and breathing fire. And it took me to a lot of very, very strange places. And that was pretty much up until I got to the age of 29. And then one day I woke up and I thought, what have I done? Like, I just done so little with my life. I had a lot of fun and I've met a lot of great people, but I just woke up one day and I'm like, oh my God, I've done nothing. And so that was kind of a bit of a wake-up call for me, my oh shit moment, as I quite often call it. And so I started to dig in at that point and just try and make a few changes in my life. But obviously from that point, I had no backing, I had no skills, I had no transferable skills apart from some of the stuff that I learned in hospitality over the years, and just getting by. There's a big movement when you start out as an entrepreneur, and it's all about resourcefulness over resources, and then once you sort of get a bit better as an entrepreneur, the money starts coming in, then you can invest in resources. Well, I wasn't at that point. So at 29, I thought, I've got to go on, sorry. Yeah, carry on.
No, go ahead.
Oh, no, we were giggling because,
I was laughing our asses off.
Yeah, we relate to you. So this is perfect.
This sounds very familiar.
Well, the next bit might not be so familiar. I've met very few entrepreneurs. There are a handful that I met personally that went to university. There tends to be quite a trend of entrepreneurs going like the anti-university side of things and pushing against that formal education. But when I was 29, I had no idea what to do. And like I say, I'd been homeless. I'd been an unemployed bum. I'd been a traveler. I'd been a busker. I'd worked in banks. I'd worked in hospitality. And I thought, I've tried pretty much everything. What's next? So I was ticking off all those sort of things. And I'm like, I'll go to university. Why not? Give it a shot. And I went there and came out of there 3 years later with a fantastic degree, which I've not used since. And then looking around me, there was no jobs. I was still unemployable, and I realized it wasn't what I knew. It was very much who I was. I just couldn't work for anybody. And so I just kept looking for other ideas. And the only change at that point in my life that came about was that a real kick-ass girl had walked into my life, and she kind of inadvertently turned me into an entrepreneur, because for the first time in my life, I wasn't actually just responsible for myself. So I was looking at this girl, and at that point, I was like very much in love with her, but I was feeling all of this shame and this emotion, which was something that was completely alien to me. And I realized it was because I didn't have a pot to piss in at that point. You know, I could barely hold down my hospitality job, and I couldn't be responsible for her. Like, she would have to take me out for dinner, little things like that. So I'm like, okay, time for a big change now. And that very much flips my dial and started making me take even more responsibility for sort of who I was and where I wanted to be. And that led me to become an entrepreneur, which is like the next chapter, if you like.
Yeah, that's really awesome, man. It's a girl essentially that turned you around, as it were.
Yeah, it's the whole behind every great man there's an even greater woman. Or is it possibly? I can never remember.
Yeah,
It's one of the two.
you know, one of the things I really liked about what you said is that you talked about taking responsibility. And I think that's one of the key factors for any great entrepreneur is just kind of take responsibility for everything. You know, I mean, I've seen like, people who actually have people under them, so managers of sorts and whatnot. And when you're leading, sometimes they just don't know how to take responsibility and they'll still give excuses. But as an entrepreneur, you really can't pawn off an excuse on anybody because your business is kind of your life at the moment. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's really cool the fact that you kind of brought that up. I thought that was a really cool takeaway that, owning up to pretty much everything. You know, if your house blows up, damn, well, hey, I take responsibility. Let's move on. Let's do some shit. You know, yeah, you just got to. Everything is responsible. You're responsible for everything that goes on around you and that affects your life. And I think that was really cool that was something that kind of was also a turning point for you. You know.
Yeah, big time. And I think you're bang on there as well, because like business is life in so many different ways, and even marketing is life in so many different ways, because it's all tied up with that psychology and all that growth and the fear and overcoming the fear and networking. And like I talk quite a lot about the playground politics when you're coming online for the first time, and people are like, oh, how did you network? How did you meet all these people? I'm like, well, you know, when you were a new kid in school and you just had to go up and meet people, same difference. It's exactly the same difference.
Right.
You know, you either hid in the corner, which admittedly I did quite a lot, or you went out and you made some new friends, and those friends became strong friends, and they became networks, and then, 20 years down the line, they're your best mates, and you're building businesses with them.
Well, I think that's probably one of the reasons, sort of the not so secret reasons we have this podcast, is that reaching out to other entrepreneurs, like-minded people such as yourself, and building our network and really getting to meet more cool people.
Yeah, it's a great tool for that. Absolutely.
It's so funny because I was actually just talking about this yesterday. I met some people. I went to Europe, I think 4 or 5 years. I went to a bunch of these different countries and everything. It was so awesome. It was my little cool experience. And I had 4 or 5. It was a good amount of people, but really 4 friends that I hung out with when I was there. And 3 of them actually ended up in Miami, where I'm at right now. And we are all from different parts of the country. Some of them are still traveling the world and doing a whole bunch of cool stuff. And we met up randomly yesterday at Miami Beach because we were all randomly here together, right? And we all kind of had the one thing in common, that around 25, 26 years old, something happened to a lot of us where we were like, okay, shit, we got to start taking responsibility. We got to start doing something because it's 30. We got to do something, you know what I mean? Like, fuck. And it was so funny that, I don't know how old you are, but just listening to a lot of the stuff that you're saying, it's something, I think, that's why I giggled, I kind of laughed a little. I think so many entrepreneurs will relate to that, especially the ones that are, I think, starting it in their maybe 20s or something. I don't know. But I could relate to it because I'm 29 now. And when I was 25, something clicked for me and they were all talking about the same thing. So I don't know. It's a really cool thing that, what you were saying about that. But what I got off topic for a quick second. One of the big things that we were bringing up is that we're always one connection away from really transforming your life. And that whole networking thing, networking doesn't have to be going into a room and just pitching everybody. I think that's silly. Networking is just literally connecting with other people in your industry, giving value, being awesome with them. And I mean, it just creates a great bond. I mean, these guys are all professionals in their respective industries, the ones that I was hanging out with. And I'm like, man, if I was trying to pitch these guys, I would have had to go through a fucking process. But I didn't. You know what I mean? We're just all cool and we can do business. We're talking about other stuff. But you're literally just one connection away from like just transforming your life. Like just one connection.
Yeah, that's an amazing point.
Yeah, I think for us in the podcast and our own copywriting careers and businesses, we had last week we had Brian Kurtz on our show, formerly a Boardroom.
I just listened to that interview. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you had told me that like a year ago, I would have said like, you're fucking insane. Like how am I going to get that guy on this podcast? As it turns out, he's just a regular awesome dude. And he was like, yeah, I'll do it for sure, man. And, that's how these things happen. Sometimes you just have to go out, put yourself out into the world and things start to churn.
Yeah, big time. And that's exactly what happened with me as well. I mean, to bring it back to that story, like I realized that I had nothing else really to try. And I thought, well, how do I get out of this? So I went to try to find a mentor. Because one of the things that I did learn at university that was very useful is it's not in textbooks. It's in the conversations that you have with the lecturers and the professors that are there, and so I just took that idea and I went to find myself a mentor that was doing what I wanted to do and that aligned with my values. And that mentor was a guy called Alex Jeffries, who's an amazing product creation coach in the UK, and now he's going on to do bigger and better amazing things. He's an incredible guy, and he was that one connection. He very much turned my life around just working with him, created a product. Long story short, that product did quite well. It did just well enough for me I'd actually quit my job at that time on the basis that I was going to make that product work, and plan B was making that product work. So it was a gamble, but it paid off. I made that product work. And then
Fuck you guys. I'll be rich next week. Fuck you.
yeah. That's what my girlfriend said. She said, so what's plan B? I said, to make plan A work. And anyway, luckily it did. And that was when I got out of working for other people at that point. And for the last 3 years, well, that was 2013 was when I started. I think that launched February 2014. It was a nondescript little product, but it was just enough to build a list of clients and customers, and it was just enough to keep money coming in whilst I built my business around that. So that was literally that one connection.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I kind of want to get, because I know a lot of people who are going to be listening to this are going to be like, what the fuck did he do? Right? So, I mean, you don't have to spill the beans on the whole thing, but do you think you could give maybe, 3-4 steps, kind of like maybe a funnel or whatever, like what did you do to kind of maybe get the traffic, like just use Facebook, YouTube, Google shit, what did you do? And if you don't mind saying what you sold or what kind, was it an info product, a software, something, just so people kind of get a taste of it, you know what I mean?
Sure, yeah, I'm happy to go into that. And as this conversation that we're having goes on, it's going to come full circle because this is where it started, and now I'm kind of being spat out the other side. But I think that would be quite important for people to realize is that just because you start off in one particular field, going one particular direction, you're not then boxed into staying with that forever, because you don't know what you don't know. And as you grow, you learn more, and then you're going to be changing your ideas. So always stay fluid until you can really understand the process that you're going through.
Very
so where
good.
I started,
everybody write that shit down. That was good.
Where I started was I know nothing about search engine optimization other than it's called SEO. But I was working with Alex Jeffries, and I was going through this process of trying to come up with an idea for a product that people would need. And at that point, it was this simple. All I was doing is I was building my own blog out. And, we were talking earlier about productivity and simplification. And I had this blog, and it's like when you've got all these plugins and WordPress, I'm like, this thing is so fucking slow, it is doing my brain in. So I thought, oh, hang on, well, if that's doing my brain in, maybe it's doing some other people's brains in too. So what I did then was I asked a few people, probably no more than, this is as bad as the market research was back then, but I probably asked no more than 10 people, right? I said, if you had a product that would speed up the website, would you like it? And they said, yes. No, that's a long story short. And then what I did is I found this little thing on Google it's like a Google speed test thing. I can't remember what it's called now. It was so long ago. But anyway, you put people's websites in there, and it would come back with all the details of what was wrong with them. So say, for example, I think there were 9 things that commonly came up that were wrong with these people's websites that I asked. So I took a list of those 9 things, and then I went to YouTube, and I YouTubed the answers to fixing these 9 problems. Now, I knew nothing about any of this at this point, and I got those answers, and I'm just going to take a sip of water. Hang on. I got those answers.
You mean beer?
And my bourbon's in my other hand.
Oh.
That's not even a joke. Maker's Mark. Yeah, but
we have to go hang out with everybody that we do podcast. I think we have to have like a fucking a Takeover Tuesday cruise, because we would everybody who's been on this show, I think, would get along with each other. It would be a cruise of debauchery for sure.
Yeah, it would be awesome. Maybe go down to Costa Rica or something. That'd
Sounds
be sweet.
good.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, keep going.
So yeah, where was it? Yeah, so I got these 10 faults that were wrong with lots of people's websites, and all I did was I found the answers to them on YouTube, and then I practiced them to make sure those answers actually worked to fix these 10 faults on my own website. So I broke my website loads, but eventually I found 10 solutions that worked consistently. And then all I did was I recorded I say all I did, but this is all new stuff to people that haven't done it. But the point that people need to get was I found all of this information on YouTube. Okay, none of this has cost me any money up until this point. And in fact, the entire thing came to $12 in total when this launched. This got me out of my day job and kept me unemployed for as long as I wanted at this point. So where was I? Yeah, so I got all of these fixes. I broke my website loads, and then I found out what worked, and then I recorded myself using like ScreenFlow or Camtasia, fixing these problems, and then I put them into a sequence, and then I packaged that up, and then that became the product. Now, the only $12 that I said I spent was I bought myself a training course, which just basically told me how to use ScreenFlow so I could record myself doing it. But that was on YouTube as well. I just decided that $12, I'll give it a go. And that was just a Udemy. Anyway.
That's a good, no cost, really.
Yeah. And that was the hard bit. Like, the next bit was finding people to promote the product. Now, that goes back to what I was talking about earlier with playground politics, is people fall down here. I got quite a lot of people to promote it just by being nice to people, like chatting with people, and people big question people always ask me is, where did you find these people? Now, short answer, and if you're going to do the whole 80-20 rule, like 80% of people came from 20% of the time that I put in on Facebook. And what you would do is you go to, say, for me, this was an SEO product. So I'm going to all these affiliate groups and product launch groups, and I'm finding out who else is launching products, and I'm recording their names. But then I'm also joining their launches, which you can do by clicking on their link, and then signing up for their launches. And then you go onto their list. And when you go on their list, what then happens is that you don't have to promote for them because you're not in a position to at this point. But what they do is they send you an email, and on that email, there'll be a list of their top 10 affiliates, for example. So there's another 10 people who go on my list. And that's exponential then, because you take those names and you do the same thing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So now you've got a list of people's contacts, and all you do is you be nice to them. You just be genuine. I was a bit of an idiot at first. I spammed a few people, because my message was true, but I was trying to save time. So a lot of people got the same messages, and then one guy said to me, "You realize we speak to each other?" I'm like, "Oh, okay, yeah, stop doing it." Yeah, and that's fair enough. You make mistakes when you're just starting out, but it didn't stop me. And then I just pushed through. The launch did very well out of it, and that then progressed into something else. But that's how I started. It was like I say, it was a $12 product. And all I did was I just basically fixed a problem that was annoying me, that happened to annoy a few other people.
That's fantastic, man. I think that's fucking huge. One takeaway that was, I think, pretty sneaky, hopefully everybody caught it, was that you signed up for these affiliates who were kind of, I guess, in the same niche. And when you got their email, you got the list of their top 10 affiliates, and now those are on your content. That's fucking huge. A lot of people, I don't think, would do that. They would be like, where do I go? Do I just join a bunch of groups and add everybody? I think that's a really cool, sneaky tactic people can use.
Yeah, it's a nice tactic. And on that note as well, like what I did is I kept a spreadsheet of all these names. So when I spoke to somebody, I would actually make a note. If I had an actual conversation with them, I would make a note. So one guy in particular, I knew that his son was playing football, so he couldn't promote for me. But then the next time I spoke to him, I could open the dialogue again. Or how did your kid get on? You know, we had a chat about the football. So that if you've got 500 people on your list, you're not going to remember all of that stuff. You know, so just writing a single little note down like that will allow you to start speaking to them, pick up the conversation where you left off, and be genuine because you're interested. You know, we had a great chat about his son who's doing exceptionally well now, which makes us both happy, and his son, presumably.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love that.
I think it was really important too at the beginning of this story where you talked about how we kind of all joked and laughed about it because I think we've all done similar things, but how you said, you know, your plan was to make this product work, and then your backup plan was to make this product work. And and I think that's, you know, we talked about this really early on in the podcast, I think in the first few episodes, and we probably referenced it a bunch too. But the whole, I guess they call this the burning the boats type idea of like you're all in. You're going to make this work or you're going to die, basically.
Yeah.
So I think that's...
Sun Tzu said that, I think, didn't he, in the Art of War? I think it was just like he burnt his boats so that the army couldn't retreat.
Right. No, I think it's an important concept. I think people, you know, you mentioned earlier that you had busked and traveled around doing juggling and fire or something, and
right.
and I street perform as well. That's one of my passions, actually. I still do it. One of the things I've always been told by, I had mentors when I first got into it, because I got into it really late, was that he said, my mentor said, you never see people succeed at this who didn't go all in. And I think that applies to everything, basically.
Yeah. Absolutely right. That's great advice.
So tell us a bit more, Luke, about your simplified strategies, because I think one of the things that sort of struck a chord with me was your, you know, I learned email marketing originally from products put out by Matt Fury. You know, and then Ben Settle was sort of the next generation of that sort of ideology, if you will. And you seem to have a similar approach.
Yeah, absolutely. Those two guys have been real powerful mentors from afar for me. And that's the simplification. So on the back of that product, you know, then there was more products, and then there was some coaching in product creation, and then there was all this other stuff. And I got to the point where just recently, actually, had one of those, you know, entrepreneurial crises where you're like, this is crazy. I'm working so hard right now.
Right.
I've got no time and no space. And I just thought, you know, if I'm working 24/7 just to make my life better, what I want to, and this is exactly where I'm at now, which will relate to the copywriting in just a second, is if I'm using 24/7 just to make my life better, it's the same 24 hours to try and help a lot of other people. You know, I'm just grinding, and all I'm doing is I'm just paying off old debt, and I'm just living day to day, but I might use those 24 hours to actually really improve other people's lives. So I had a massive need for simplification in my life so I could actually focus on that. And that led to me basically giving away all of my products for free, making them all free, bar one. And that one gets sold via email. You know, so this is very much, and big hat tip to Ben Settle for this. This is very much his idea of, he writes an email a day, he's got his email players, he's got a few other products dotted around. But all he does every single day is he pitches the same product, bam, 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 bam. It's a high price, $97, you know, but it doesn't matter to him whether or not it sells or not, because he knows the next day it's another pitch and it's another pitch. And his style and that Matt Fury style lend itself perfectly to that kind of, it's almost like, I want to say serialization, which is the direction that I've tried to take my emails in. So yeah, I mean, Andre Chaperon has been like massively influential in this as well.
Right.
And they all tend to very much talk about this idea of infotainment, which is great, and I love it. And it's where I come from, where you're not hard selling, you're just entertaining each other, people for a couple of minutes every day, and if they want to buy from you, then great. But what I've tried to do with mine now, and this has been recent, is I've been trying to kind of move it more to simplify it for myself, and I've been trying to move it more to helping other people, not necessarily teaching other people. But you know how Seth Godin or somebody, like, he gets you thinking when you read his stuff, and it can be so short and so succinct, but he's like, bam, Seth, yes, Seth,
yeah, you get those two sentence blog posts and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Now I'm not there by a long shot, because I'm not Seth Godin. Only Seth Godin.
Right.
But I'm very much trying to make my email style now is I tell a story every day, and it's short, it's succinct, and it's just about what's going on with me. And this is the idea of kind of the serialization of my life. I'm trying to almost, I guess, in a real horrible kind of capitalist dystopia, I'm commercializing myself and my identity so that I can sell some products. But what it also does is it makes my life very, very, very simple, because I'm just telling a story each day. And people talk about, well, how do you tell a story? People get really hung up on this. And one of the biggest tips that I got, which I think I got from Matt Fury, and you might be able to tell me if this is correct or not, but it's, if you want to start a story, it's as simple as starting off with where you are and what time it happened.
Yeah, I think that is.
And all of it,
yeah, I think that is a
all of a sudden, you're in the story. Oh, 11 o'clock this morning, I was walking down the street. Bam, you're in the story. You know, oh, last Tuesday, this dog was chasing after me. You're in the story. And that's literally all people need. Obviously, you've got to pay off the reason that they're there at some point. But people struggle to start. And just those two ideas will start your flow and get you going into your email.
Oh yeah, I think that's you know, I recently with a client of mine, because I didn't want to do the emails because I'm lazy like you, so I taught him, you know, how to do the emails, and we played this little game basically where, because he would say, oh, what story, because he knows his market a lot better than I do, and his people a lot better than I do, and I could research all that and get that, you know, as a copywriter, you delve into these things and then you become a very expertise at these things. But I mean, like I said, I'm lazy. So I said, you know, he said, I can't figure out a story to tell on this particular day or whatever. And so I would do this exercise with him where he would just give me, you know, a topic, and I would just free associate, you know. And I've done so many emails that it's very easy for me now. I can literally turn anything into a pitch of some kind. But you know, it just takes practice. I think people are complicating it because they think it's got to be some sort of, you know, this is not going to be the next Agatha Christie. This is just exactly, you know, just get it out and make it infotaining, as you said before.
Yeah, people see it as a value judgment on them, and it's not. It's just, you know, because it's so personal, because it's something that you create. But it's just, you're just putting some content out there to help somebody or amuse somebody, and you're not going to be able to help all people and amuse all people all of the time. Most of my jokes probably bomb with 90% of my audience. Right. It doesn't matter, because it makes me laugh when I'm writing it.
That's right.
So that's a small win, you know. And if it gets a few people to click through and then buy the product at the end of it, then more power to them. But a good way to come up with ideas is, I mean, I have 4 books on the go each night. And it'll be like 15 minutes on each book, and I will do like a book on philosophy, I'll do a book on marketing, I'll do a fantasy book, because I quite like reading fantasy and stuff, and I'll do whatever else I'm reading at the time, and I'll have my little notebook, and that helps that free association that you're talking about, because ideas just sort of pop into your head left, right, and center, and that kind of keeps you current. A lot of people say, and I agree with them wholeheartedly, I just can't always bring myself to do it, is like keep up with popular media and like fucking Big Brother and that kind of stuff. And I just, you know, life's too short, you know, to, to involve yourself in that. And, you know, if you want to, more power to you, but it's not for me. So I try to get my creativity from just balancing books off each other.
Yeah, too, and I think too, I mean, if you are brainstorming ideas like you just said, that, I mean, for people listening to this, he just gave you the method. You read several books, and trust me, you will come up with ideas at the same time. And also, those things are more evergreen than the current, you know, topical stuff of what's going on. Like in America here right now, there's the election sort of, you know, nonstop 24/7 election talk, and so those are very topical, and you could write stuff about that. But then, you know, 2 years from now, it won't be so evergreen.
Yeah.
So
it depends on your style very much.
Yeah, exactly, and who your audience is and stuff too, of course.
Yeah.
Now you've progressed from that first product, but it sounds of it because you've referenced the products now, so you've
Yeah.
grown your business out, of course, and
Yeah.
so how many products do you have now? You don't have to go through the whole names, but just give people an idea, because that was a couple of years ago that you started the.
Yeah. See, I mean, that was initially an SEO product, and that was to get myself on the scene and just prove it gives you credibility if you've created a product that works. Not only do you build a list of people that have bought from you as well. I don't like the term buyers list, but I mean that's what it is, because we think we know that buyers tend to buy more than freebie seekers, you know. And I'm sure that's true. I mean, I've not got into the stats enough to know for sure if that is true, and I don't really care. I try to treat everybody the same that comes onto my list. That was the first product, the SEO products, but all the products after that were about building lists, building products. Like my major product comes off the back of doing some product creation coaching for other people to help them through the process. So it's the recorded sessions of that, and that's the only thing I sell now. The other stuff is I've just put a free list building course up onto my website, which has got the tagline, build yourself a list that pays for itself in 21 days, and that's very much the hard, fast, get yourself an opt-in, get yourself a tripwire, get yourself a mid-range product, the whole Ryan Dice method and stuff like that, which is the path I was going down for a while, but it was the path that came way too convoluted for me. But now my funnel, if you want to even call it a funnel, is I give away a load of free stuff and I do some work on Facebook, and people come to my site and they can have that list building course for free. And if they like it, they've got multiple opportunities to opt in. They don't even have to opt in for it. And that builds my list slowly. I haven't tested it against putting a squeeze in front of it, but I don't want that extra hassle. The idea is that it's open source. I've even asked people to share it. I said if they want to take it, if they want to change it, if they want to copy it, they can do that. It doesn't bother me. It's out of my head now. Whatever will be, will be. And the list is growing. My list, and it comes from all kinds of people now, which is nice. And the other interesting thing about that it is kind of on point. You know Chet Holmes, and where he talks about this 3% rule, that only 3% of your audience is ready to buy at any one time. Doesn't matter if it's washing machines, cars. If you're in a room of 100 people and you say, "Who's ready to buy a car?" 3% will put their hand up, and then 6 or 7% will be open to the idea. So that's kind of 10% there, which means if you're just emailing every now and again, you're not hitting your target, because somebody might be ready to buy one day but not ready to buy the next day, but they might not see your email. So by having this constant email, you're tapping into that 3% and then the 10%, and you're also building pressure because they're seeing it, even if they're not reading the pitch anymore because they're so used to seeing it. Same thing happens with me with Ben Settle. It's like I know that there's that link at the bottom that's
Right.
just saying buy me, buy me, buy me, buy me, buy me, and he's offering so much fun and value that eventually, you're going to click on that link and you buy. But from a writer's point of view, it's no extra effort on your point whatsoever. You don't even think about it, which means that you can just truly engage with your customers.
No, I completely agree, and I was explaining this to someone the other day too, where I said it's not the any one email that makes the sale, but it's that front of mind way you are constantly, and you become, and people bought from me. I mean, they're most of them now. I'm trying to think, I can't think of any off the top of my head where the relationship ended, but they're most of them are friends of mine now, and it becomes because now they know all this stuff about me, and through their reciprocating by sending emails saying, "Oh, I really like your emails," whatever, and they sort of dribble information about themselves back to me and stuff, and then I know who these people are now. I'm fleshing out the skeleton of who the buyers, clients on your list are.
Yeah, it's nice. It is like in every little email that comes back to you it's a bonus, isn't it? When somebody will say, that's the first time. I had one girl that said that's the first time I've ever read an email out loud to my husband. She was just laughing at the email. I'm like, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
It's just little things like that make it worthwhile. You're not just typing to avoid.
Yeah, I think people who are out there who may end up listening to this, if they're a writer, like writers have this, if they're going to write novels or whatever, they have a lot of books. I've read a lot of books about writing because it's something, as a copywriter and as an email marketer, I'm just interested in that kind of stuff. But it seems the overarching sort of idea about writers is that they get writer's block a lot, and it takes forever to finish a damn book. And one of the things I would say to people who are listening to this that maybe haven't picked up on that yet is if they started to do a daily email, which becomes a daily habit, even if you never sent it out, you would accrue this momentum and this break this inertia that's very hard to overcome when you're just sitting there with a blank screen kind of thing.
No, I agree wholeheartedly. And just emails make your copywriting better. Like writing email copy makes your general copy better because it teaches you to be more focused and more succinct.
Right.
Right. So that's it. I mean, that's a great tip. And also, I find I do an hour every day because behind all of this, what I actually do, like the major part of my bread and butter comes from copywriting.
Right.
That's what I do, and that goes all the way back to Alex Jeffries, who wasn't teaching me to be a copywriter, but he just said something to me one day, and he told me about a book from it was John Carlton. It was the Kick-Ass Copywriter's Guide. He said, I bought this years ago, and what me and Alex have in common, well, one of the things that we have in common is that we're both dyslexic, and yet we're both writers, both copywriters.
Right.
That. And so he was like, I got this book, and it's changed his life. It taught him to be able to teach copy. And he said, the thing is, once you learn to write copy, you'll never be without money again.
Right.
Because, short of like a massive cataclysm, people will always be selling stuff. So even if, like, worst case scenario, you have to, like, everything goes to shit and you have to go on somewhere like Elance and whore yourself out for a ridiculous amount of money to write some articles about cheese or something, you're always going to be able to make money. And so that.
No, that's great. That's brilliant. I think you're right. I mean, John talks about that, of course. And
maybe I should take that a little bit more seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I did. I took it very seriously, and I studied very hard. And I've written I've written every day since February 2014. Pretty much, I would say I've not written copy maybe for about 2 weeks of that time. Every single day, and a lot of that has been for paid work, rather than just emails every single day. So I've done my hours, and that's been my bread and butter. And so what I do every day is I give myself, before I even sit down to write anything for anybody else, I do an hour's just training, learning something from somebody, and then the first thing I write, I try to incorporate a lesson that I've just taught myself into whatever copy it is that I'm writing, if it's possible, because that embeds it then, rather than, you'll listen to podcasts like this, for example, or any numerous other podcasts where you get so much information thrown at you and you soak it all up and you think it's great, but then you never actually embed it and use it, so just being able to just really quickly just try to incorporate in something you do, it gets it in.
I think, too, it was Ben Settle that first sort of succinctly put it this way, and I was like, oh, that's such a good idea, and it seems simple and very obvious, I guess, when somebody says it, but I mean, it takes some real sharp person to sort of break it down into something this simple. I think he said, when you wake up every day, you should take that first hour and just write for yourself, your own products, or and do the client work after that. And it sounds like in some way you're taking that on board too, and you're learning and then implementing it. So you're learning, trying to learn something new too, which is, of course, being a student is a huge part of this whole process.
Yeah, that's a good call.
That's awesome, man. Well, where can people reach you? You have a website, obviously. I've read your blog.
Yeah. So my website is my name. It's just LukeCorden.com. And that's the best place for people to reach me. Or on Facebook, it's the same. It's just LukeCorden.com. There's no I do have 2 Facebook profiles, but you'll get one, and it's pretty much linked to the other anyway on that name. So,
right.
And I'm always happy to have a chat with people. I mean, if you go and check out the blog, like most people will see that most of the stuff that I do there is about trying to support other people and just simplify and also make fun and less scary the entrepreneurial journey.
Right.
And make it okay to mess up, because we all do.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Fail your way forward. Now, I think one last topic we'll tackle, and you have some tips away on, is because ever since we started this podcast, Carlos and I get inundated with, of course, people starting out in copywriting who are trying to, like we talked briefly about Elance and so forth, people who are trying to get clients, who are trying to find clients, who are trying, their best to step into the paid work arena. What are a couple tips that you may have used to just jumpstart your career?
A couple of tips that I have used to jumpstart my career. Mine has been an interesting one, in as much as I've been lucky enough to meet people going to live events.
Right.
So that's a big tip, and I think that's just networking in general. Although that said, the events that I were going to were internet marketing events, and so much of my coffee now is in that kind of area. But I mean, if you were in fitness, for example, you would want to go to events that personal trainers are holding rather than copywriters or internet marketers are doing, because that's where your big pool of people are.
Right.
Other than that, I mean, I can't recommend any more highly that John Carlson book that if people are just starting out, it's called The Kick-Ass Copywriter's Guide,
right,
or something. If you go to John Carlson,
Kick-Ass Secrets of a Marketing Rebel, or
The Copyright of a Marketing Rebel, yeah, that's it. That is worth its weight in gold. And he also does a freelancer sort of follow-up to that, and you can buy them both as a pair, and that will actually give you practical advice on finding clients. From a very simple way, if you go to Colin's group, the Cult to Copy, on Facebook, and get involved there, and he's got a jobs board. But more importantly, there's a lot of very good people in there that are willing to help you out if you're prepared to just put yourself out there.
Yep, I will agree with that.
And just connecting with people as best you can. I mean, I've been the 2 times where I've sort of been a little bit wavering and a little bit down on my luck. I've been very lucky to have a couple of people there that I'd met previous that I could connect with, and that have steered me in the right direction. And that's going to be different for everybody. But the point is not being afraid to ask. And even if that's, for example, me, and if somebody wants to get in contact with me that's never met me before, I'm not going to laugh at you. I'm not going to tell the entire world that you've contacted me. I'm going to help you. And I'm your average bloke.
Right.
So that could be the same for you. People just want to, as long as you're not a dick, people will help you out. That's one of the beautiful things about our community, I think, is everybody's messed up at some point, and everybody's needed help to get to where they are. So as long as you're genuine and you're open to helping other people back, you can go a long way just by contacting people, being yourself.
Yeah, I think those are really good tips, and we've, I think, heard a few of those before, probably on this podcast and stuff, but that doesn't make them any less important, or any less, people should take them on any less. A lot of these things are simple. They're not necessarily easy, but they're very simple. It's just you just got to put yourself out there and make some connections with people and stuff. And Carlos likes to, he had to step off the call to go work with a client, but he would say at this point, I think, in the podcast that, this networking is such a big deal. It's kind of like the old school mentality when there wasn't an internet and stuff. You had to go and meet people face to face. You now have the internet where you can meet people, like we are. You're in the UK and I'm in the USA and we're talking here. Connect with people and good things will happen, but you can't do that in a vacuum,
Yeah, you've got to put yourself out there.
Awesome.
Absolutely. And it's easy for us to sit here and say that because we've done it.
Sure.
I mean, it's still, I still came on this call with a stiff bourbon in one hand and a glass of water in the other one because I'm chatting up with 2 dudes from the other side of the world, and I wanted that little bit of relaxation.
Right.
And that's something that's okay, that you could do that as well. I mean, you would know Dan Meredith. He has been sensation, an absolute beast. And I've loved watching him. And one thing that he did, way back when, is that he had these things called Vodka Wednesdays. And I don't know if he would mind you telling me this or not. I mean, it's all over Facebook. But anyway, what he would do is he would drink up some vodka on a Wednesday, and he would write or email people that he would normally be too self-conscious to write or email.
Oh, nice.
You know, so it's breaking him out of that comfort zone, and he doesn't need to do that anymore.
Right.
You know, but just seeing how, like, if there's an embodiment of the power of networking or just making friends is probably a better way to put it, then is check out Dan Meredith and go get into his group, Coffee with Dan.
Yeah, it's great.
Anybody that's listening, just get in there and see what he does, and you'll get a lot of very good lessons from being in that group.
Absolutely. So people are afraid to contact people in networking because you're maybe more introverted than the Luke or myself or Carlos. Then you can employ the Meredith method of putting the wobbly boot on and then writing some emails or something.
Yeah, absolutely right. You know, that one person that you really want to contact, but you haven't got the balls to contact them, just write yourself up and then contact them and see what happens. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I'll have to write John Carlton on Wednesday then, maybe or something.
Yeah. There might be a queue.
Well, thanks a lot, man. You've been a riot. You're an awesome guy, obviously, and you've been very helpful for the people out there. I know that anyone who listens to this will take away an enormous amount, not only in just the steps you've taken, to become successful and leave your job, essentially leaving your job for a price of a small pizza.
Yeah. That's my next headline.
those bullets write themselves.
Yeah.
But I think your simplified, approach to things takes the overwhelm out of things.
Yeah, I hope so.
So thanks a lot for coming on, man. We will do this again sometime for sure because you're just hilarious.
Yeah.
And so people can reach you at lukecorden.com. That's LukeCorden.com. And
right.
And on Facebook under the same names. And great, man. Thanks a lot for coming on. I'd also like to thank Ben Sound at bensound.com for the intro and outro music. We'll talk to everyone next Tuesday for another edition of the Takeover Tuesday podcast. I can't remember who we have on because we do so many of these now. But I rest assured they will have excellent information just like we shared here today. All right, later.